Let me tell you right now, that is the longest 2-minute warning ever. I mean, it took all day. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Prep Football Preview, brought to you by FriendshipCars.com. I'm Kenny Hawkins, along with Jesse Crawl and also Michael Epps, and we're coming to you from the WJHL Digital Center. I'm going to put my glasses on so you guys get ready to laugh, because I don't know where the little circles are. We're going to figure that out. We're back, as Tag Team would say, for another week of News Channel 11 Sports High School Football Preview Show. We had a good slate of games last week in the start. Some more good ones in week 2. So let's break them down. We have some from Southwest Virginia. Let's not forget about that. They start or kick off this season, and we'll talk about them later in the show. But right now we'll start with Northeast Tennessee, and we'll start with Volunteer taking on Dobbins Bennett. West Ridge at Daniel Boone, but that game had been postponed due to the COVID outbreak. That was going to be our big game this week, and we're going to talk about that. We have had several COVID situations, but there was a COVID outbreak within the Boone football team. So let's check in on the Indians and the Falcons, who proved last week that despite a huge loss from a senior class like last year, they remain one of the area's powerhouse teams after beating Tennessee High at the Stone Castle. Now they get ready for their home opener against Volunteer, who I'll call a very hungry Volunteer team. But let's start with Dobbins Bennett. Let's talk about the Indians. We've already talked last week about the number of kids that they lost, but next man up mentality came through last week.
And I think that really shows the testament of what Joey Christian can do for this football team. I mean, you've been seeing these guys, battle back, reload, and everything like that. But this team really needed to reload after last season, especially with the pieces they missed. But I think we don't need to harp on that anymore, because these kids are probably getting tired of that, honestly, at this point. But we really just saw a Dobbins Bennett team, like you said, that was kind of hungry to really prove people wrong, and they did that against a very good Tennessee High squad. This isn't a team that is just going to roll over and give Dobbins Bennett the win. So kudos to Joey Christian for what he was able to do and be able to bounce back and get his kids ready for that. But realistically, I mean, this Dobbins Bennett team, you didn't miss a lot of things from last year's team, especially on the offensive side, because they were still able to throw the ball around, they were still able to run the ball, and this Volunteer squad, like you said, they're not going to roll over either. I mean, they're going to be able to put the fight on them. But this Dobbins Bennett team, I think it might surprise people. I think we were surprised too, and there's no knock on them. I think we were just surprised that these guys were able to bounce back so fast and not have too many hiccups against Tennessee.
Well, let me ask you, Michael, let's talk about Dobbins Bennett. One of the things that Coach Christian talked about at the beginning of the year is that basically we're going to be quarterback by committee and running back by committee. Obviously, those guys stepped up last week.
Yeah, especially at quarterback. The two guys that are really kind of figuring the situation out right now is Jake Carson and Noah Blankenship, who Joey Christian played both of them. And they each got time. They each made some plays. Christian wants to see more of the guys around them start to play a little bit better, take some of the pressure off of them. But Jake Carson played really well. Christian liked his grip of the offense and the understanding of the game. He's that big, 6'5", 230 frame, and so he wants to see Carson kind of reel that in a little bit and start to figure out some of his potential that he has as a player. And then for Blankenship, he's the Abingdon transfer, and he's got that speed. He's kind of a playmaker, so we could see him maybe take on other opportunities in the offense if Carson is the guy. But right now, it's QB1, QB1A right now, and Blankenship, Christian said he just wants him to mature a little bit, figure out the offense a little bit more. But two pretty talented guys.
And, of course, we had an opportunity to talk to Joey Christian about that performance last week against the Vikings and looking ahead to his next game against the Falcons on Friday night.
Listen, we know Garrison Barrett, and we know Heath Miller and Andrew Knettle and the guys that they have. Listen, they beat us in 7-on-7 at John Battle back earlier in July. So I think our kids are probably a little smarting a little bit over that.
We can't take any team lightly, and I know they have a good quarterback and some good receivers, so we're going to expect a passing game from them, and we're just going to take them like we take any other opponent. We need to make sure we keep our blocks to give the quarterback time to throw the ball, and we need to make our reads better on defense, but I think other than that, we'll be fine.
We see them like we see everyone else, another football team coming in here trying to beat us, and Jay Fred, it's such a hype place to play in, it's senior year, last home opener, it's a whole other type of energy playing here.
I mean, really, can you put much on 7-on-7? I know he says that they beat us in 7-on-7, but you're not playing with any linemen. I mean, you're not really playing with a lot of the big people up front, more of the skill players that are out there. But is that something that possibly Jesse McMillan, a volunteer, and his team can kind of hang their hat on?
I think so. I mean, we saw it last week with Volunteer being able to, throw the ball around. And I think actually it was one of our top plays of the week. So, folks, if you want to vote on that, go to WJHL.com. I got to put that plug in.
It's fine.
But no, they were able to air it out. And I think when you're able to do that, that's a big process for Volunteer. Because I know Volunteer doesn't have, the strongest record, doesn't have the strongest tradition. And that's something Jesse McMillan's trying to get rid of. But when you're able to, move the ball around like that, that's a big X that you need to cross off. The linemen, obviously, they need to get work done in the trenches. That's big with any team, whether you're on the offensive side or defensive side. And there's our play of the week right there, or, a nominee for it. But at the end of the day, this Jesse McMillan football team, I've been at these practices. He gets on these kids like no one's business. I mean, that's what you want from a football coach. If you want to change tradition, that's a football coach that's not going to let things slide. Not have the funnest practices, but he wants his kids to grow. And I think that's the most impressive thing about this Volunteer team is that they're going to go 100%. If it's first quarter, fourth quarter, down by 20, up by 20, it doesn't matter. This team's going to bring it, and I hope Dobbins Bennett's ready for it.
Now, Michael, we're watching highlights of Volunteer against West Ridge last week. What can we take from that game? I mean, listen, West Ridge put up 56 points. Ethan Bergeron ran like a man with his hair on fire. What can we take away from this Volunteer team? I guess one thing is they never gave up. I mean, they fought to the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that they're missing Cameron Johnson big time, right? He was honestly one of the better running backs in this area last year. Losing him is tough. He was their guy. They like Barrett a lot, but they need to bring some balance on offense. That's for sure. I mean, you heard Coach mention he respects those playmakers like Miller and Knittel, along with Barrett running the offense, but they got to bring more balance. And I know that McMillan knows that. He's trying to instill that. So they have opportunities. I know they're pretty big up front, but Dobbins Bennett is also very big up front. And DB certainly knows how to control the line of scrimmage. They've been doing it for a few years now. And they also have other guys like the Levi Evans, who we heard from in the soundbite. He's a tight end, but he also comes in and, runs the football a little bit. He got a touchdown run last week. So DB is going to bring a lot of size at him. So Volunteer needs to, be able to find those holes and try to at least find some balance on offense by running the football.
And, of course, I don't know if this means much, but Jesse McMillan played at Dobbins Bennett. So he understands the tradition. He understands a little bit about what they do. I mean, Joey Christian's been there a long time. Not saying that that's going to help in this game, but he kind of understands a little bit of what he is facing. Now, game number 2 for us this week is going to take place in Stony Creek, and that's going to be between Cloudland and Unaka. How about a strong 1A battle between these two Carter County rivals as they square off, as I mentioned, in Stony Creek on Friday night with some huge early season implications. The winner takes the driver's seat in the conference, and both teams had little trouble in finding the end zone last week. I mean, you had, first of all, Unaka running over North Green in their contest, and then you had Cloudland not having much trouble taking down Jellicoe. Let's take a look at Cloudland first of all. This is a team that we talked about at the beginning of the season. They only had about 15, 17 players, and then when the school year started, I think they kicked it up to around 22, 25. But this was just old-fashioned Highlander football, and that's pounding ground.
The Birchfields are back, man. Go ahead, Jesse. But I just love these Birchfields. Seth Birchfield, I know he was good last year, and he absolutely went crazy running the football. So that Birchfield extended family up on that mountain, they continue to produce big-time athletes.
Now, you talk about Birchfield, I honestly don't think you can bring up a Cloudland team without bringing up a Birchfield. It doesn't matter if it's, volleyball, basketball, baseball, it doesn't matter what it is.
DB. Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna run into that. So I think what Cloudland does, and we brought up teams that are gritty and like to get down and dirty. It's Cloudland. I mean, we've seen this how many times where it doesn't matter if they're passing the ball like you're seeing right now or they're running the ball. They're going to bring it to you, and they're going to fight, and it doesn't matter. You brought up the amount of numbers they have, 15, 30. It doesn't matter. They're going to put 11 on the field, and they're going to put the ball down, and you better be ready to take it because whether they're going to run it or they're going to pass it, they're going to be dangerous no matter who they bring to the table. And I think that's one thing Unaka is going to have to look for is that this offense is very versatile, and it can be very dangerous real fast.
Yeah.
And another thing that we have to talk about, Coach Benfield, if you remember at the beginning of the season, they were supposed to play Happy Valley, and Happy Valley couldn't play because of COVID. So they kind of had a quick turnaround, invited Jellicoe there, and then obviously took care of business. We had a chance to talk to the coach about last week's game and looking ahead to this big contest with Unaka.
It's 1A. Our offensive line is going to be playing defensive line. So instead of grinding and having to have a 15-play drive, we've really been focusing on let's get it, be efficient, disciplined, score fast. That way we can rest, Because if we have a big 15-play drive, they got to turn right around and play defense. They're going to be killed. So we've been focused on being mentally disciplined.
Well, we're a lot more balanced, and that's going to help us in the long run. We throw a lot more. We still run it quite a bit, but we're a lot more balanced. It means a lot because as long as I've been in high school, we ain't never lost to Unaka, so I wouldn't want to start now.
Everyone here, it's two tough-nosed mountain teams go out every year. Of course, Cloudland football team, we're always going to bring in our strong running game and everything. Bring in our great blocking from the linemen and strong defense, and we just hopefully to pound it down them and get a win.
Of course, I'm the old guy here. I covered Coach Benfield when he was at Cloudland. Didn't recognize him there with the glasses. Looked like he was headed to the library. I like that look as he studies his next opponent. Let's talk about the Unaka Rangers. I mean, this is a team that went down and just dismantled the Huskies, winning, I think it was 42-0. I know they put up over 40 points. Obviously, they got some studs in the. We talk about the Birchfields and Cloudland. Let's talk about the Ramseys at Unaka. They got some Ramseys and some players down there, Michael, that can get the job done.
Yeah,
right?
Their younger sister too, Ramsey, is All-State in basketball. But these two guys, Landon and Devin, are big time. They were big time last year. They're back at it again this year. Landon just went crazy at QB. He can air it out, and you don't see that a ton in 1A games, but they certainly did that. Landon threw for 4 touchdowns, 3 of them, of course, to his brother, Devin. So you know that they got that connection down pat. And Dakota Freeman's another guy that they hit the ball to. But they like to run a lot of screens. They like to do some outside stuff. Cloudland was talking about it too. They want Ramsey in space because Devin Ramsey, because he's small, but he's fast. He can make a lot of plays. So this really won't look like a traditional 1A, grind it out, run every play kind of game because Ramsey can throw the ball and Chase Shell can really throw the ball for Cloudland. He didn't have to much last week when they dominated Jellicoe, but he still knows how to throw the football. So they have fast offenses, and it's going to be exciting to see which one can kind of make more explosive plays, but they can both do it.
One of the other things about this Unaka football team, and you covered them last week, Jesse, when they took on North Green. I know it was just a minute ago, defense stepping up with a big interception. They also play defense. They look like they got some bigger bodies. They've spent some time in the weight room.
Yeah, I mean, you just took it right out of my mouth, honestly, is, some of these guys up front, they just jammed the line, and it's so well to see that. One of the things that they like to do is that they like to pressure the quarterback by, sending those big bodies up the A and B gaps as well. So when they're able to get that pressure up the middle, a lot of quarterbacks aren't able to handle that, especially at this level right now. So for these guys to be able to get that pressure on defense, in that front line with the hog mollies up front, for them to be able to do that really sets the defense up, on a different level where the linebackers in the secondary are able to, kind of sit back and watch it. Because if Unaka's up, I mean, we saw it, a big score. They won 42. They were leading 42-0 at the half. So they obviously probably could have, put more points on the board. But just, there was respect there where, you didn't want to rump the score, which makes sense. And it was running time. But, one of those things that you saw from the defense, it was truly incredible, is they didn't falter. If North Green had a big play, they had a couple of them. They got right back at it the next play. But, shout out to the running back, too. I don't know if we're saying his name right. I like how he said it's Blamo.
Jamal Blamo, I think. Yeah.
Blamo.
That's how I'm pronouncing it.
Wasn't there a toy called Blamo?
Hey, it might be. This kid was wound up like a toy, though. And he's actually, I'd like to give another shout-out. Play of the week. I think he had like a 60-something yard run touchdown that, he got to that first level and he was gone. Blammo. So, he exploded out of the backfield and he was gone. So if I'm saying his name wrong or we're saying his name wrong, please give us a shout out.
And then you guys are not going to remember this. Neither will Slater, our engineer in here right now. But they used to put up the little captions with Batman and Robin, Boom, and Blammo. Maybe that's where I'm getting that word
that's
from.
That's
Maybe that's where I'm getting that from,
That's fine.
Blammo, because I've seen it before. We had an opportunity to talk to the Unaka head coach, and let me tell you, this is a Rangers team that has not won their opening game since 2018, and I think that's the last time they beat North Green. So obviously he is excited and looking forward to their next contest against the Landers.
A lot of this game is going to be decided by mental toughness. We know Cloudland is a tough football team. We've got to match their physicality and their toughness. And if we can't do that, then we're going to really struggle. Because, you can have 100 kids on the roster, but give me 11 tough physical football kids who are going to come out there and hit you in the mouth and never back down, and you're going to have some success.
Cloudland all the time, they've always been talked as the biggest of the league and everything. Like when I was little, they were always big and bad, and I just want to show that us Unaka, we can go do something. We're better than you. We'll be able to outlast you.
We've circled this one on the schedule. We try to prepare as best we can, just make sure everybody's on the same page, doing the same things over and over again, just to get it right, to make it perfect. It's a pride game for sure. They've been running the region for a long time, and we just want to prove that we're here.
Okay, listen, I'm definitely going to have to get one of those shirts that says Creek Rising. I like that over in Stony Creek. I'm going to have to let Coach know that.
I like, though, we got 2 offensive and defensive linemen. I like when you talk to the big
right.
guys
And they're both,
there.
they're both only sophomores.
That's right.
Both
Let's
only
move on to our next game, game number 3. That's going to be Chuckydoke against Happy Valley, and we stay in Carter County. Happy Valley, who couldn't play last week, remember I said because of the COVID incident against Hampton, or should I say, no, that would have been against Cloudland, the outbreak of their own, but they're back and ready to get the season started against Chuckydoke. This game will be played on Warrior Hill. We really don't know much about Chuckydoke because they played Knox Catholic, okay? It's kind of hard to say what they have. And we actually don't know much about Happy Valley because they didn't play last week. So what is going on with the Warriors this year?
Hey, you know what you can expect from Happy Valley? They're going to bring some size to the table, and, they're going to bring a lot of tenacity because they always do that. I mean, it's one of those teams, and I keep bringing this up, and I like the mentality a lot of these squads bring is that they're able to bring that nastiness out in practice, and then they bring that over to the game. I mean, there's so many guys that, they kind of lackadaisical through practice, but, this Happy Valley squad, and I think Michael can attest to this, is that they're ready to go no matter what day it is, no matter if some team got COVID or if they got COVID, it doesn't matter. Every single week, in and out, Friday, they're ready to go, and I think we saw that last year. Now, unfortunately, last year they did have Matthew Bond, one of our former News Channel 11 Player of the Weeks. He's out of there, and he was an absolute bell cow for that squad. He was carrying the rock at least 20, 30 times a game. So it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back and how they kind of transition from him to other backs and see what this offense can truly do.
Michael, with that being said, James Bond, now that he's gone, what do they do to replace 007 on this football team? And if they can't, are we looking at a passing Warriors football team?
They also lose their QB, Eli Ayers, who was their guy last season. But, they have some guys, Andrew Little. There's some weapons coming back, also some guys on defense, Caden Campbell. So they have guys, and they really are bringing a lot from last season's push, right? Jesse, you mentioned that these guys are ready to rock. And they were always ready to rock, but last season was a huge step for them. They lost a couple games early in the year, but they really found their groove, and they had a shot to win a share of the region title in that last game of the year against South Green. And that was at home, pretty awesome environment for them. And unfortunately, they weren't able to pull that one out. We know South Green went undefeated in the regular season and won that title outright. But that was a big step for this program, I think. Big step for Jason Jarrett to really instill in these guys that, hey, we're just up on this hill here at Happy Valley, but we play football and we play some good 2A football. So they know how to move the ball. They had a great offense last year that really put up points. So I think they're going to bring some of those things in. They have some guys coming back on the O-line, but it's going to be tough to run that football with, not the way Matthew Bond did it, that's for sure.
All right, Michael, let's stick with you for a second. Let's talk about their opponent, Chucky Doak. A lot of new things going on down there. First of all, they got a brand new head coach, and the fact that I just mentioned they took on Catholic last week, one of the top teams, private teams in the state, obviously. So it's hard to gauge exactly what Chucky Doak has. But talk about the Black Knights and what can we expect out of what I used to call the black hole. They got new lights down there, but I still like calling it the black hole. What can we expect?
Yeah, they're good. I mean, Matt Ripley, that's a pretty brutal way to start your head coaching career, right, with Knox Catholic. But, yeah. I mean, they still, they lost 63-7. But you kind of know going into that game that it's not going to be pretty. So I think they at least know that their guys played hard. They had valuable experience in a big game against a legit opponent. Who knows if they're going to see a team that good all year. They probably won't. I mean, they're going to see Hampton and South Green later in the year and the rest of the 3A teams like Unicoi and Johnson County. But I think they still have some things going. They won the region 2 years ago, so the program has won the region a number of times. They know how to win games. That was just a brutal one, but, junior QB Caden Tulloch is, just going to try to bounce back and try to fill that role that Matthew Palazzo left, and I think they'll be able to figure it out.
That's one of the things we're getting ready to talk about. You said the quarterback, Matthew Palazzo, not there anymore.
Exactly.
That's another key element with Chucky Doak, and we knew then they were a passing team. So I think it might be somewhat of a coming out party for them tomorrow night as well.
We bring up the game against Knox Catholic, and we don't want to dig the knife any deeper than it really needs to go, but I think you can just use that as a primer game. I mean, and I'm not saying that they went in with a, we're going to lose this game mentality, but it's like, it's going to be a tough game. Let's see what we can get. Let's see what we can get out of our team. And obviously we run at the game. We got some help, down in Knoxville, but it was just one of those things where if you get this squad that you can, get some positives from. If you got positives from Knox Catholic, you can definitely hang your hat on, and it's tough to replace guys like Matthew Palazzo and other seniors that were on this team last year that they were pretty solid guys. So for this team to kind of keep moving forward, it's going to be important for this team to kind of stay positive. Yeah, it's a new coach. Yeah, you got new players coming into roles that maybe they're not used to. So for this Chucky Doak team, it's really going to be a true test to see how they bounce back from the week one this week as well.
Supposedly, when you take on teams such as Knox Catholic, it's supposed to make you better as a football team. We'll find that out tomorrow when they take on Happy Valley. A powerhouse team we didn't talk about last week is Greenville, the second-ranked team in Class 4A behind top-ranked Elizabethan in the latest AP poll. They played a Saturday game at Knox Central and picked up a big win, 42-17 over the 5A Power. Now they get ready for their home opener at Burley Stadium against Granger. And, Jesse, if we talk about Greenville, then I guess we need to start with Mason Gudger.
The kid just absolutely tore it up. Almost 300 total yards. I think he only had 3 catches, but there were 114 or 15 or 12 yards, whatever it is, for a couple of touchdowns as well. And this kid can do it all. I mean, if you watch him, punt return, kick return, catching it out of the backfield, slot wide receiver, running back. It doesn't matter what this kid does. He's going to use his wheels to get around you. And one touchdown that kind of stood out to me when watching this game was that he stumbled off a screen pass, and he still beat the defender to the angle and took it for like a 70-yard touchdown. So this kid's going to be one of the top kids to watch in our area. Obviously, that game he was up for, Player of the Week nominee. Bryson Rollins won that. But nonetheless, I can guarantee you, and I'm not going to make any promises to Greenville, but if he keeps this up, I can promise you we will be out there handing him some awards and some hats and some T-shirts because this kid can do it all.
Well, obviously, Michael, we'll find out something in week 3 as we just talked about. That's when, right now, if everything stays the way it should be, it'll be 1 versus 2. I think one of the things that we didn't talk about with this Greenville team is their defense. Obviously, Gudger makes them go on offense, but they got a pretty good defense if they held Central to the points that they did.
Yeah, for sure. And another point about Gudger, I know you talk about Player of the Week. I'm willing to make a hot take that he could be up for Mr. Football semifinalist in Class 4. It's really not that hot of a take because the guy's going crazy, and he's gonna go big time the rest of the year. But they have guys. I mean, their secondary is insane. Jaden Stevenson, Jacoby Gillespie, who we know is a basketball power and is also playing wide receiver. Stevenson's huge on the offensive side. He had a touchdown catch in that game. He had a big one in that highlight where he threw up the piece to the corner. He just absolutely burned them. So, I mean, they have too many weapons. It's going to be fascinating to see that game next week against Elizabethton. But to not jump ahead, Granger's, 4A team, they beat Cumberland Gap pretty big, 34-14. So Granger's not bad. They gave Elizabethton, I think, a solid game last year. I can't remember, but I know Granger's, Greenville's taking it one game at a time, and but they got a lot going. Also, I saw Corbin Cannon was the QB for Greenville, not Brady Quillen. So I don't know what the situation is right there. I know Quillen was younger, but played pretty well last year. So that'll be interesting to see. But either way, this Greenville team's rolling.
All right, let's take your crystal balls, both of you guys, to Southwest Virginia now. As we take a look at the game between John Battle and Abingdon, celebrating tomorrow night with Week 1 for their high school football season, a matchup between Washington County, Virginia schools. John Battle travels up I-81 to Abingdon. The Falcons won the Mountain 7 last year, but they have to replace some serious production if they want to repeat as conference champions. I know we've talked about this the last time as we got ready for Southwest Virginia football. It wasn't that long that they played. They played this spring. Question is, can Abingdon, Jesse, keep up the momentum that they created in the spring?
Well, one of the biggest pieces was Martin Lewickus, and he's a big back that was able to carry it on both sides of the ball. He was able to get it done on defense, but he also was one of the best running backs in the area. Even though Virginia only played, I think, 6, 7, 8 games. Most of the teams usually average that out at. But this team is ready to go. I mean, they got some size, up front. They've got some size in the backfield. They got some size in the, outside too, and some wide receivers that had some pretty good height, 6'3", 6'4". So it's going to be exciting to see what this team can do. Looking at practice right now, I went to that practice, and this team's motivated. There's a lot of guys that think they're getting overlooked, and when a team gets overlooked and they have the right coaching and they have the right formula and they have the right guys that have that chip on their shoulder, any team can be dangerous. So it's going to be interesting to see how this Falcon team really responds to that criticism, and being able to see if they are able to bounce back and kind of get rolling in the right mindset and kind of get that mentality and get that momentum going.
Michael, as Jesse just talked about, one of the questions that jumps up with Abingdon, what are they going to do at quarterback?
It's interesting. Cole Lambert was their guy who really played well last year. I mean, Abingdon played well, the whole offense. They won their first 6 games and then lost in the second round of the playoffs, and their offense was going crazy. Cole Lambert was the guy with Lucas. That was a dynamic QB running back combo, probably as good as Brad Bunch and Xavier Lomax was to Union. I mean, they were really that good. Lambert got hurt in the baseball season, so he's not playing. And I know Blankenship, who we talked about for Dobbins Bennett, he transferred to DB, so that's a pretty tough situation. So they're trying to figure that out. But you mentioned the wide receivers, Jesse. Peyton McClanahan, who played really well last season. I think he's a really elite weapon for them. And then Haynes Carter, who was also pretty good. But I know McClanahan, I mean, him and Lambert were big time last year. So whoever is going to really take over under center is going to rely on those two guys. And also you brought up Lucas. You said his brother – is it Deshaun? He's a lineman on the team. I thought that was pretty cool.
He's a big boy too.
All right, Michael. Let's take a look at their opponent, John Battle. This is a team that didn't really have the season that they thought they would have in the spring, but now that they had short time to reset, I'm looking for a different Trojans team this fall.
Yeah, I think they had some COVID issues and they missed out on 1 or 2 regular season games, but they still, they lost to Virginia High in the first round of the, Class 2A playoff. So that's not exactly what they wanted to happen, but they did take care of business in their 2 games that they were expected to win, which was Gate City and Lee, who were, unfortunately, the bottom 2 teams in the Mountain 7. So Battle still was able to do what they had to do. They lost to Abingdon in the regular season, and then I believe they lost to Union. They had a couple other games they were supposed to play, but they weren't able to play. But I still think they're still trying to work things out with Coach Ricker there in that football program. And I think they're going to figure it out. But Abingdon, if you're going to beat them, last year was not the year to beat them. It's this year. Abingdon's still figuring a lot out. So I think this game still probably is pretty up in the air, but Abingdon's got, still a lot of guys back from last year. It's a pretty talented group.
All right, guys, in the interest of time, we're going to keep it rolling. Let's talk about Wise Central taking on Eastside, a team that did do well this past spring was Wise Central. Can they keep it rolling, Jesse, especially in this game against Eastside tomorrow night?
Yeah, it seems like every single year Wise Central is towards the top of the standings, no matter who's there, who's not. So this Wise Central team is really going to be interesting to see. They like to pound the ball down your throat, and I think that's one thing that really stands out to this Wise Central team and the people that are going to go up against them. And I think another reason why Wise Central works so well is that they're able to have the size up front. I mean, you see that right there. There's a lot of big kids, especially people carrying the ball too. I mean, they got some size that have some offensive weapons as well that can really get it done. And they can outman you and outbody you, and they really have that grit and determination that you like to see out of teams that are going to make deep runs. So I think the Central team is once again primed to do another deep run. I don't know how deep it's going to be. I'm not going to bring out my crystal ball or anything like that, but I think this Wise Central team is going to have a successful season.
Yeah, they were.
All right, Michael, let's talk about their opponent. They're going to take on an Eastside team. Obviously, usually has a pretty good running game. What do you expect from this team in tomorrow night's game?
Yeah, both these teams had interesting seasons. Eastside started really well, went 3-0, and lost to Castlewood. They ended up, not even making the playoffs. They had like a play-in game against Grundy, which was kind of a playoff game. But they're still trying to bring some more physical mentalities out to the rest of the team. It's something that they've really taken pride on the offensive line. Braden Hensley is big time. He's all state. He was a former high school standout. He's back. A number of guys back on the line, but they're trying to really get that offense rolling. They had QB Will Stansbury, who's moved on, so Jackson Collins is the guy now. And, I mean, they're going to have some opportunities because Wise is losing a little bit. They lost their running back, C.J. Crabtree, who was an absolute monster. But their Wise QB, Ethan Mullins, is back. So, interesting. Wise has a lot of confidence. They were picked to win the conference last year. They lost to Abingdon in week 2. So that was tough. They ended up losing the conference. But they won 4 straight games. They beat Union on the road, made it to the second round of the playoffs, and then lost to Union in a rematch. So these are 2 teams that I think have a lot of confidence in themselves. Eastside really felt like they should have done better and they felt like they could have won the Cumberland last year. But it was that weird spring season, and, everyone feels like, it was random. It was weird. You couldn't really have non-conference games, which this is. It's a good Wise County rivalry that they kind of like to have cross-county. And so I think Eastside has a good shot in the Cumberland. They're going to have some battles with J.I. Burton, that's for sure. But I think each of these teams have some interesting players to watch.
All right, guys, before we get out of here, real quick, do we have any questions? Michael, Slater, anybody ask us any questions?
I haven't seen the Facebook live stream. We gotta get back to that with the questions. Make sure we'll do that next week. So
a number of comments.
Make sure, the questions, the comments on the Facebook live stream. We did that last year, so we'll pick that up again next week. If you guys have questions, make sure to comment, and we'll try to bounce those off.
All right, guys, we want to thank everyone for watching. Once again, the Prep Football Preview brought to you by FriendshipCars.com. Make sure to watch us again every Thursday night for the week's previews. Also, make sure to watch Touchdown Friday night for all the highlights of these games and more tomorrow night. For Jesse and Michael and also Slater that's sitting here with us, I'm Kenny Hawkins saying good night, everybody.